you are still not going to be protected. The goal here is to basically destroy any kind of political dissent. They want to undermine and destroy the First Amendment while simultaneously presenting themselves as the protectors of the First Amendment. Right-wing Twitter says shooter had a communist profile pic. FBI reveals the Dallas ICE sniper left behind bullets with a text anti-ICE on him. 29-year-old Joshua John committed for killing 2 detained illegal immigrants. His profile picture on Facebook is a communist. Oh, brother, here we go. Anyway, why does every shooter have inscribed messages on the casings? Honestly, that kind of makes sense. That could very well be copycats, because like when stuff like this happens once, like other people also make up their minds, and there is a copycat meta for sure. So that's not that surprising. But obviously the inscribings, as opposed to like who he shot at the facility, make not a lot of sense. But we'll obviously get into that in a second. Anyway, yeah, we'll start off with the Dallas gunman, and then we'll talk about the Israel-related stuff in a little bit. But as of now, there's not much information, but a gunman, a sniper rifle, shot at an ICE facility in Dallas. And of course, when you first hear that, you go, oh my God, this is yet another instance of like the violence that they were talking about, this administration was talking about against ICE agents. But of course, the difference in this situation was the targets weren't actually the ICE agents at the facility, but instead those who were detained at the facility. They shot and killed. The shooter shot and killed 2 people. Per NBC, Joshua John grew up in Allen, Texas, where he was in Boy Scouts, unemployed, but previously had done coding, registered independent, once charged with delivering marijuana. His older brother, he wasn't interested in politics on either side as far as I knew. Anyway, we'll get into it now. Gunman kills 2 at ICE immigration facility in Texas, Channel 4 News reports.
A huge police presence near an Immigration and Customs Enforcement field office in Dallas. A main artery northwest of the city center cut off after a gunman opened fire, reportedly from a nearby roof.
I met him once and he was unbearable. You met the shooter? Oh, you're talking about the rep, the New Mexico rep. Jesus Christ.
Police called to the scene at 6:40 local time.
The DPD was able to locate the shooter, who was deceased. We're going to be working this investigation shoulder to shoulder with our federal partners.
The investigation centered on the building next to the ICE Enforcement and Removal Center. The shooter firing from this roof, reportedly killing 2 detainees and leaving a 3rd critically injured in hospital. The FBI saying no law.
Asmirad is trying to make this about you. Wait, what? How? He's not even live. Is he? He tweeted. I mean, I don't really care what he has to say. And I'm sure I have more pressing matters and more significant ops than Asmongold, who will, of course, use this as an opportunity to stamp out any sort of political discontent, political dissent against the administration, and certainly the ICE practices and whatnot. So it's not remotely shocking to me that a lot of people will do this.
Law enforcement officers were hit, but releasing this image of bullets found near the dead gunman.
I can confirm at this time that the FBI is investigating this incident as an act of targeted violence.
Yeah, this is like this is an incredibly strange piece of evidence, I will say, because even with a Charlie Kirk situation with Tyler Robinson, like the bullets have Chow Bella Chow on them, right, engraved on them, but then and he's shooting Charlie Kirk. Like there is a through line, like a logical through line there, right? If you present it as if you present the victim in this circumstance, Charlie Kirk, is like a fascist, and you're like anti-fascist or something like that, whether it's correct or not doesn't matter. But in this circumstance, he's saying like he's anti-ICE, okay? But also he's shooting at the detainees. He like shot and killed people who he would be supposedly trying to release, right? Like it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But let's take a look.
The evidence that we've seen from rounds that were found near the suspected shooter contain messages that are anti-ICE in nature.
But also, look. All I'm going to say is this. Even Aaron Rupar said, this is the fishiest I've ever seen. We're supposed to believe the shooter wrote anti-ICE in pen on a bullet, then shot detainees, but not ICE officers. Like anti-ICE in and of itself is such a strange it's such a strange thing to write as well. Like he didn't say like ICE, he just said like anti-ICE. Like what? Like it's kind of giving Black's Rule, if you know what I'm talking about, for those of you who don't know. But I guess it might have been that he shot at something. Breaking news update: shooter fired into an unmarked van transporting ICE detainees in Dallas. Detainees were struck inside the van. 2 people inside were killed and one was injured. The shooter died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound, sources say. So that makes a little bit more sense as far as like what he was targeting. So then that makes a little bit more sense as far as like the shooter being anti-ICE for sure, even though the bullets saying anti-ICE is just strange in general.
Again, this is just the most recent example of this type of attack.
Since President Trump came to power promising to deport 1 million undocumented migrants a year, ICE has become the public face of his hardline immigration policy, carrying out raids on workplaces and car parks, offices often marked.
I think one of the strangest parts about this is that given that the shooter shot and killed ICE detainees, this administration that has literally presented the people that are being detained by ICE as violent criminals, that has actually done everything in their power to like put them in alligator Alcatraz, dehumanize them, treat them like they're Pokemon, are now going to turn around and be like, what a heinous crime that the shooter committed. It's like, you want that crime. You're basically doing that. Okay? Like you're basically doing exactly what this shooter is doing, but for a more convoluted, from a more convoluted and technically not illegal perspective, I guess.
Pulling people off the street. The field office attacked today, subject to a bomb threat last month. A month earlier, a detention facility, also in Texas, attacked in what authorities said was a coordinated ambush.
For those of you who don't know the history of the Bracero program, and in the aftermath of the Bracero program, and I've talked about this before, in American history, in the aftermath of the Bracero program, there were mass deportation initiatives that were being taken place. And in this very same state, the state of Texas, you had ranchers with guns running around looking for marshals to shoot and kill. The reason why they were doing that is because they did not want their neighbors to be apprehended. They did not want their farmhands to be apprehended and mass deported. This is in American history. This has happened in American history. Not to say that this person is not like operating on some left-leaning ideology or whatever, but just understand that this has happened throughout American history, okay? This is not new. I have brought this up on numerous occasions. I've brought this up a lot. People get very frustrated when mass deportations start taking place, and then they take matters in their own hands in a country like America where everybody has guns and a proclivity to do violent things, and then they do shit like this.
They left a police officer shot and injured.
To every politician demanding that ICE agents be doxxed and calling for people to go after their families, stop.
Bro, this dude killed detainees, and these guys are still talking about the fear that ICE agents have to experience on a daily basis. Once again, there is no consideration for the victims here. There is no consideration for the victims who were already apprehended and were presented as people that were slated to be deported from the country for the crime of being born on a different side of the border. And what they're going to do in this circumstance is basically make it so that it's illegal for people like myself to say, you shouldn't do this. You should not engage in mass deportations. They're going to say, how dare you say that? You're threatening the lives of ICE agents. No, I'm not. I'm not doing that at all. Political violence is unacceptable. Obviously, I have never advocated for political violence. I don't advocate for political violence, but it doesn't matter. The violence coming from the system here is also unacceptable, and we should be able to talk about that. Yeah, they're going to make it so that you say ICE or abolish ICE is a hate crime. That's what they're trying to do.
It has very real consequences. Look, in America, we disagree. That's fine. That's the democratic process. But your political opponents are not Nazis.
This attack coming 2 weeks after the assassination of right-wing activist Charlie Kirk in Utah, prompting White House pledges of a crackdown on left-wing organizations that it says constitute a domestic terror movement. America's political divisions, its culture wars, getting bloodier and more dangerous by the day.
We begin, though, with Brooke Taylor. She is on the ground in Dallas with an update for us right now. Hi, Brooke.
Hi, guys. Yeah, officials spent most of this press conference.
Chat, remember, mass deportation of random people for no serious crimes whatsoever is not violent, okay? Is not violent at all. You know what the real violence is? Calling that out. Don't you dare call that out. Don't you dare say this is an inherently violent act that you are engaging in that is unjustifiable, that is cruel for no reason whatsoever. Don't you dare say that. That's the real violence. Calling us out is the real violence. Exhibiting discontent is the real violence. Ridiculous. Yeah, mass deportations and mass apprehension, not violent. Saying we shouldn't do that and we should actually offer conditional amnesty to every single person that has been living on U.S. soil, that hasn't done any crimes or anything, and are simply just trying to make ends meet. That's the real violence. Don't you dare do it.
Talking about how this anti-ICE rhetoric has to stop, or you have this violence like this happen. Federal agents, they're just trying to enforce the law, these officials say. The FBI is now investigating this as a targeted act. Here is what we know. Homeland Security says that before 7 a.m., a sniper started shooting from a nearby rooftop and fired indiscriminately at the ICE facility, including a van that was in the Sally Port. DHS says 3 detainees in that van were shot, and at least one of the detainees was killed. The gunman then turned the gun on himself. Officials say no ICE agents were hurt. The FBI, though, shared pictures of rounds found right near that shooter with anti-ICE engraved on those shell casings. This is the latest in a string of targeted attacks on ICE facilities right here in Texas. At this same facility, a man was arrested for making a bomb threat last month. Then in July, a group ambushed officers outside a separate Texas ICE facility. One officer was shot and survived that shooting. Senator Ted Cruz was here at this press conference and spoke about this violence.
Violence has no place. It is wrong. And we should come together.
I agree. Which is literally the reason why I abhor and disavow and also consistently criticize the actions of this administration. Mass deportations is an inherently violent process. Okay? That's what it is violence. But a lot of people only experience that or only recognize that as like unjust and violent behavior when they see it happen to their immediate loved ones or when they see it happen in their neighborhoods. If they don't see it happen in real time and they're looking at it from afar or have no care or consideration for the people that are being apprehended, people that are being detained, people that are being deported, the way we interpret, the way we look at violence, the way we see violence is entirely dependent on whether we have any sort of up close and personal relationship with the victims or whether we see it happen in our neighborhoods. Okay. When it's happening elsewhere, when it's happening far away to people that you do not actually consider the humanity of, you have no capacity of recognizing it as like an inherently violent act.
If we want to have a debate about immigration policies, we can do so in the halls of Congress without demonizing each other, and especially without demonizing the men and women who every day put on a badge and go risk their lives to keep us safe.
And of course, so many responding to this attack this afternoon. Vice President J.D. Vance posted a statement on X saying, quote, "The obsessive attack on law enforcement, particularly ICE, must stop." You also have Texas Governor Greg Abbott. He tweeted, quote, "This assassination will not slow our arrest, detention, and deportation of illegal immigrants." Again, guys, this happened outside of a processing center where illegal migrants are taken to get processed after they're arrested by ICE.
All right, Brooke Taylor in Dallas on the scene for us there. Stand by.
Be careful pulling stuff up on stream for this. The pick of the gunman after all over Twitter. Oh shit, I didn't see that.
All right, Bill Daley's a former FBI investigator and joins us now. I mean, this almost seems like a daily occurrence, Bill, that we have another day, the sun comes up, dawn breaks, and another politically motivated shooting. It's just no sign of stopping.
It's horrible, John. And you know, John, over these past several months and even the past since the administration took over. You know, we've seen this kind of push by politicians and other people around ICE facilities. They've gone as far as even some of these elected officials kind of, you know, trying to force their way in, stopping vehicles. So, you know, it is kind of a buildup of what we've seen over the past few months, only to this point to a deadly level. You know, I think a lot of people speak about this rhetoric. You know, I'll cite a few things, but I know a lot of people speaking about it like to talk more about the investigation. But, you know, when you have elected officials calling ICE agents, you know, agents, modern Gestapo agents, or, you know, governors moving to not have masks on ICE agents because they want people to know who they are so they can go after them. You know, all of these things are lead up to people who might be prone, who are driven in a certain with ideology or direction, as we've seen today, and they carry out these horrific acts.
Bill, what is with this? I don't know if you would call it a trend, but for lack of a better word, the trend we're seeing where these assassins and mass shooters now like to try and carve little messages on shell casings before they carry out these shootings. Is this something that you have seen before the last few months, or is this new?
No, it is not new at all. Americans are a uniquely violent nation with an access to an arsenal of weapons, okay? And also, Americans are pretty on top of everything else. And copycats are obviously super commonplace. This is just how it goes. Now the new meta, it seems, is to deliver a message or something. The only difference now is who the targets are. The targets are more consequential in the eyes of the administration, in the eyes of the media.
This is, I mean, it may happen periodically over a period of time where individuals, murderers, or other people may do something similar to this, but it's not a trend. This seems to be certainly a trend. You know, we saw it with the Mangione shooting in New York against the United Healthcare CEO, where he left those bullets on the sidewalk. We saw it with Charlie Kirk.
You're not taking this anti-ICE bullet marking seriously, are you? I mean, it looks strange for sure, but now that we know that the shooter was not actually like directly shooting at detainees deliberately and was instead shooting at an unmarked van that it thought had a bunch of ICE agents in it, it does develop a profile. It does develop a motive that makes more sense. The anti-ICE part of the writings are so stupid, but you know, who knows?
Shooter, and now here. So, you hate to say copycat, but certainly all the hallmarks of it is, you know, within the past few weeks, months, if you will, you know, we have people doing the same thing. The other thing, Jillian, I wanted to talk about is the FBI's investigating this. I think, you know, a couple of positive things to be taken away from this. A, law enforcement was extremely...
This is a funny take. Law, only Americans think. Other Americans are some critical thinking people. I agree. We live in an absurd universe, man.
Responsive to this. FBI there on the scene. I think under the leadership of Director Patel, they're trying to be very forward-leaning and transparent. That was mentioned both by the SAC, agent in charge of the Dallas office, as well as Director Patel, who came out and posted those images that you just referenced. So they're trying to be as transparent.
It did come out that he was shooting at a van that was going into the facility, Chatter.
As forward-leaning as they can, and to help the American people not start to spin their wheels with worrying, you know, who's this shooting, is that they were able to provide some clarity pretty quickly with releasing that photo.
I want to come back, Bill, to this idea of the rhetoric. This is Joshua Johnson, who's the ICRO director there in Dallas. Here's what he said a little more than an hour ago.
This is the second time I've had to stand in front of you and talk about a shooter at one of my facilities. And I think that the takeaway from all of this is that the rhetoric has to stop. There are people out there who are seeing what is being placed online, and they're coming and they're doing acts of violence against ICE employees.
You know, we should mention that there were the shootings at ICE facilities in Texas not long ago. Add to this. And then you have the shooter, who sources identified to Fox News as 29-year-old Joshua John. We're trying to find out more about this individual who takes a gun. Looks like, according to the stripper clip that we saw a picture of posted by the FBI director, that it was just a typical hunting rifle with a capacity of 5 cartridges. Takes that weapon, aims it at the ICE facility, starts firing at will, and then takes their own life. And is it this rhetoric that people just keep doubling down on that suddenly causes someone to snap?
Yeah, this question in and of itself is bringing the attention back to those who have a difference in opinion with the administration and those who understand that these mass apprehensions that are taking place are fucked up. Just as it was the case with the Charlie Kirk execution, these guys immediately turn around and go, you know what the real problem is? It's the people that are naysayers. It's the people that are not patriotic enough. It's the people that are not sufficiently pro Donald Trump. They are the ones who are causing this discontent, as though if no one was saying, hey, man, this is pretty up, people would not actually come to that conclusion on their own. The notion that we cannot actually criticize the administration for doing violent mass apprehensions of random people living on U.S. soil that are working to make ends meet, like that we are not allowed somehow to say that this is wrong objectively when it is literally wrong, is ridiculous. It's absurd.
You know, with kind of borrowing a little bit from my behavioral analysis friends, you know, you just don't know what reaches a individual and what breaking point they have. And although many people can kind of, you know, flick this rhetoric off as being just that, political rhetoric, it does affect a number of people. And I think today, John, with all of the various sources that people are getting information, or ones that maybe want,
yeah, they're going to come for people calling Nazi-style individuals a Nazi-style individual or a fascist, or they're going to come for people that are calling ICE Gestapo. Of course, the real problem here is the administration's carte blanche approach to unlimited cruelty to those that they have designed as enemies of the state, random neighbors of ours, okay? 1 in 14 families in this country have one undocumented parent, okay? 1 in 14 households in the United States of America have at least one undocumented migrant. Think about that. That's what they want to do. They want to go after 1 in 14 households, and we can't even say that is fucked up. We can't say that that's up. We can't say, like, hey, man, there's an alternative out there, which is called documenting these people. You know, they're just human beings. Nope. You have to say that they're violent animals that are here to destroy the country. Otherwise, you're an enemy of the state and you must be punished. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
Lock themselves into with regard to social media and news outlets, and they're hearing it over and over again. You know, the fragility of people where they are at any particular moment may lead them to commit one of these acts. But the other thing, too, John, as we look into this investigation, and the FBI is doing this right now, is to find out, you know, where did this person, where were they getting this information from? Where was he being, if you want to call it, kind of radicalized to conduct one of these acts? Who was he around? Was he talking to other people about this? It's the same thing they're going through right now, still on the heels of the investigation of the Charlie Kirk assassination, is to find out who else might be in the orbit of this person who may have either encouraged, provided information, in any way knew about these plans and didn't come forward. So, you know, there's still a lot of stones to be turned over in this investigation.
Why didn't they talk about the rhetoric when it was the Walmart shooting, the El Paso shooting, the Albuquerque shooting, the Buffalo, New York shooting, Dylan Roof? Do you want to know why? Because those guys were objectively right-wing, openly far-right, anti-government extremists of the white nationalist variety. What they've decided now is that even if you have someone who is of that background, you can just get away with lying. Okay? You can just get away with lying. That's all you need to do. Just lie and claim that the shooter was a leftist, like they did in the Minneapolis shootings. Both in the first Minneapolis shooting, with Democratic congresspersons, Democratic state legislatures being targeted, you could just claim that the shooter was a leftist or whatever, and people will just go along with it. No fact checks necessary there. Or even with the Annunciation Church shooting, where the profile in the background of that shooter was very clearly a far-right, white nationalist, esoteric, nihilistic neo-Nazi, right? No leftist is ever going to put the names of prominent white nationalists and white supremacist shooters on their gun or talk about it in their manifesto. But it doesn't matter. That didn't stop right-wingers from going along with this narrative that these guys were leftists. They're just creating a profile or creating an environment of hysteria. And the reality of the matter is that just like when the Democrats did not actually engage in any sort of counter messaging initiative to correct the record on migrants not being this out of control violent force that was destroying the American social fabric, they are completely lost in the sauce. They don't know. They're completely oblivious of what the administration is doing now. They're creating another manufactured hysteria around left-wing violence. And the Democrats are not turning around and saying, you're wrong. Violence is a constant. It's devoid of any sort of ideological background in the United States of America. But if we were to look at political violence, more often than not, it is actually the right that is engaging in political violence, not the left. And for years and years, the right did not do a single thing. It is mind-boggling to me that all of our leaders are just lost. They're gone. They're nowhere to be found in this process. They're nowhere to... They're not saying anything. They're not correcting the record. They're not even remotely invested. Not realizing the warning signs. Not realizing that the administration is, once again, whipping up an entirely new manufactured hysteria that they will use to erode the First Amendment. They will use to basically stamp out any kind of political discontent, and it will not stop with radical elements in American society. It won't stop. If you think that it's just going to be people like myself, for example, you're wrong. It is going to be anyone and everyone that says, I don't really what this administration is doing. The Jimmy Kimmel attempt was a great example of this. Not quite correct. Kash Patel literally does not know who Dylan Roof is.
Followed white supremacist propaganda, murdered 9 black parishioners in Charleston in 2015. Do you deny this?
I'm sorry. Dylan Ruth?
Roof?
The director of the FBI doesn't know who Dylan Roof is. Dylan Roof is one of the most high-profile white supremacist shooters. I cannot believe that he does not know who Dylan Roof is. Under different circumstances, I would say he's lying, right? I would say he's obviously lying. He knows who Dylan Roof is. But in this day and age, the incompetence, the sheer incompetence from this administration is so obvious that I don't know. I don't think he knows who Dylan Roof is. I don't think he knows. I totally believe that he is that stupid.
Roof, can you give me some more information?
You're head of the FBI, you probably know this. If you don't know, that's fine. Okay.
You can give me a reminder. I've got a lot in front of me.
It was national news. Robert.
God damn, he's so stupid. We got absolute nutters leading. We got nutters leading the madhouse. Oh my God. What do you expect? Of course, for context historically, specifically in Texas during the Eisenhower administration in response to Operation W Back, it was the Republican farmers who went out and ran marshals out of town. Exactly. That's what I was talking about. I literally talked about this before. I explained this throughout the election cycle to tell you how much anger and resentment builds when these kinds of mass deportation initiatives start happening. When Eisenhower did this, it was the Republican right-wing ranchers that literally would go around town in their pickup trucks with weapons to hunt down marshals, because at the time it was the marshals that were conducting these mass deportation operations. This is before INS or ICE ever existed. There was no Department of Homeland Security, for example.
This week about mask mandates for ICE officers, a new rule proposed and put forward by Governor Gavin Newsom. Take a listen to what he said on Saturday. I want to get your response.
I'll be signing a bill, the first in the nation.
Yeah. Again, this is what I meant when I said they're going to go after anything and everything. Gavin Newsom makes a perfectly reasonable initiative in the state of California, which demands that public servants actually follow the law, and they can't hide their identity when they're conducting these operations. There is so many good reasons for this provision to exist. Why, you might ask? Because if you have faceless, masked, armed thugs of the state that don't present their identification, that don't have to present their identification, you can have copycats. This has already happened. there are plenty of people who have been arrested for falsely presenting themselves as ICE agents to kidnap and sexually assault people. Okay? That's a real thing that has happened in America in the last 9 months. These guys are public servants. They have to. They have no right to hide their identity in the process of taking away someone's liberties. Like, what are we talking about? I can't even comprehend how this has become a point of contention, that it's like, no, you have to actually shelter the public from who their IDs are. There's a reason why people's badge numbers are on their chest, or used to be, right? What are we doing? What are we doing? This also protects ICE agents as well, technically. If every single person that is supposedly acting out the way that the law is designed, right? If they're doing this lawful order, following a lawful order by the administration, there is no reason to try and hide your identity, because you're following the rules that the administration has presented. And it protects ICE agents because then people are in a country where everybody has done, people don't immediately assume that it's a random group of people that are trying to engage in a kidnapping in broad daylight. Okay? Because if you don't know that these group of masked thugs, okay, that are coming at you from an unmarked car, for example, are actually following a lawful order by the federal government, or if they're just a bunch of random psychopaths who want to kill you, if you don't know the distinction, if you don't know the difference because everyone is masked, then sometimes people are going to engage in an act of self-defense.
Saying enough. ICE, unmasked. What are you afraid of? What are you afraid of?
How does that play into all of this when we're talking about the identities of specific individual ICE agents?
Yeah, well, I can tell you what they're afraid of. They're afraid of something that occurred today, and they're afraid of something that may happen to them or their families if they're identified. We're not talking about normal, everyday police operations where people in patrol cars or FBI agents are out there conducting, everyday activities. But when they're involved in these more contentious issues, which seem to be in certain locales more contentious than others, is they're very much concerned about their well-being and safety of themselves and their families who may come under attack. Could be everything from people showing up at their doorstep. Very easy today, a couple of clicks away, you can find out who somebody is by an image and therefore where they live. So those are the things people are concerned about. So I mean, you have to really, when the governor says that, you have to say, well, what is he then saying? He's saying that it's okay for all these people to then be further exposed because they're carrying out their duties as sworn law enforcement officers of this country, carrying out the laws have been prescribed by Congress. So, I mean, I think we have to take a look at that very sobering. The other thing, Jillian, is that, with a lot of the talk about, people having due process. Well, today, two of these people who are being just detained are denied their due process because they've been killed.
Right.
So when you flip that around, you have to say, what is really happening here when someone's willing to take not just someone's life, if the intention was to take an ICE agent's life or ICE agent's life, but also the due process of those people who are just being...
Dude, even the potential for an ICE agent's life that could be taken is an issue of higher consequence in the eyes of these people than the actual victims in this process, who were detained people that were slated for deportation. Understand that they do not even remotely give a shit about all of the people that they're detaining, so much so that they just glance beyond that point, because they can't even make that argument. They can't even say like, the poor souls that were lost here, because every rhetorical tool that they've used has been to dehumanize the people that are being detained so that people are more comfortable with this mass detention process. So they can't turn around and be like, the poor souls that were slain, the poor souls that were murdered in this process. It's like the hypothetical violence against ICE agents is more consequential for these people than the actual people that were killed. They're not real people in the eyes of Fox News, the right broadly, the administration. The people that are being deported and detained and slated for deportation are not seen as real people ever. It is crazy how the people not realize this, man. Yeah, just a reminder that Republican candidate Valentina Gomez posted a video simulating the execution of a migrant in December. And then they turn around and they go, violent rhetoric, violent rhetoric, violent rhetoric.
Detained. They've not been convicted, and there's been no other specific allegations lodged against them, and their due process now has halted.
Yes, you have a gunman who allegedly was anti-ICE by the inscribings on the cartridges, the shell casing, and it ended up that it was detainees who died here.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
You mentioned this idea of risk and danger for agents who go out there every day, and they are just merely carrying out the laws of the United States of America. We heard personally from one of them back in July on Martha's show.
If they are carrying out the laws of the United States of America, and as a law enforcement officer acting on the orders of the federal government that have unimaginable power, the power to take a life without any accountability whatsoever, the power to actually take away someone's freedom, they have to do this in a lawful manner. And a part of that is doing it in a way where you know that this person is an ICE agent. You know this person is a member of law enforcement. You know what his badge number is. You have identifiable features, and they cannot mask themselves. But as I talked about before, the way that the Trump administration is gearing to change the domestic terrorism designation, which does not exist, right? Like there are no domestic terror groups, for example. You have to be foreign funded in order to be declared a terrorist organization. But now they're trying to do Antifa. They're trying to make Antifa into an organization, even though it's not a defined organization at all. In that executive order, even demanding that an ICE agent show you identification is considered doxing. Okay? So they want to make that an act of terror. If you're in the process of being detained by an ICE agent and you turn around and say, I'm an American citizen, can you please show me identification? I don't know if you're a agent or not. Who the are you? That's considered doxing. That's illegal. They want to make that illegal. Understand that they're manufacturing outrage here. They are trying to create an environment where people are more comfortable with what the government is going to do next. They have done so for every single issue so far. They've done this with immigrants. They made it so that the only message that you ever heard was this hysteria surrounding migrants, migrant crime. Migrants are killing 300,000 people a year, 400,000 people a year. It was fucking ridiculous. It was completely made up. It was unimaginably racist at times as well. Like when they said Haitians are eating cats and dogs and shit like that. These were lawful migrants that had the proper documentation and the clearance to work on U.S. soil, by the way. They had temporary protected status. You're right, what's next? I'm telling you exactly what's next. They're not hiding it. They're not sheltering you from what they are going to do next. The only reason why you'd be oblivious to what happens next is if you are not paying attention, or if you're only getting your information from liberal media, from mainstream sources that are seemingly lost in the sauce, that don't understand what the is actually taking place right in front of our eyes. Just like they were blinded or blindsided, either willingly or they were oblivious to this reality, to the consent that was manufactured to even start this anti-migrant mass deportation initiative. What's going to happen next is stamping out any kind of discontent. That's what's going to happen. It's going to be illegal, even though we have a First Amendment still right now that is supposed to protect this kind of lawful political expression, political demonstrations and whatnot. I'm telling you right now, they are going to make it so that it's illegal to say ICE, basically. Okay. And it doesn't matter if you are a liberal or even a former Trump supporter. You are still not covered. You are still not going to be protected, because the goal here is to make that illegal, to make that expression illegal. The goal here is to basically destroy any kind of political dissent. They want to undermine and destroy the First Amendment while simultaneously presenting themselves as the protectors of the First Amendment.
Her name is Selena. Listen to what she told us.
I'm very proud to say that I work for ICE, and to have to take off my polo or, hide behind so that way my family is not put in danger or my colleagues are not put in danger. And I'm very, like I said, proud to work for ICE, and to have to kind of put my polo down or my badge away for the...
At no point do these people go, maybe what we're doing is up. At no point. If you're proud, why do you have to hide? Oh, it's the threats. It's the fears. Unironically, that fake narrative, that bullshit narrative for law enforcement is making this environment less safe. It is an inevitability at this point that someone is going to think that they are being kidnapped by some random people coming out of an unmarked car and literally exercise their Second Amendment rights. They're going to try to do castle doctrine eventually. How can people not realize this? This is not like, this is, I'm fearful of the repercussions. I'm fearful of what comes next. I don't want that to happen. All the while, we're not even considering the consequences of these kinds of initiatives. Like, not only are they unpopular, but they're not good at all. They're not for the betterment of society. Like mass deporting random people that are working in farms and mass deporting people at their court dates, outside of their court dates in the courthouse. Like, how is that good for anybody? You designed a manufactured hysteria around the supposedly violent undocumented migrants that were not being apprehended and that were not being arrested by the previous administration. This was bullshit. If someone, regardless of their documentation, commits a heinous crime, of course they were prosecuted and subsequently deported as well. It is ridiculous. They lied about every step of this process. They made it seem as though previously ICE was woke and the woke judges and the woke cops would just let people go. Ridiculous. Oh, wow, you've decapitated 8 babies, but you're a Guatemalan migrant? I guess we have to let you go. Fuck. Joe Brandon is too woke. Like, what are you talking about? That's not what happened. Of course that's not what happened. We've always been a nation of laws, okay? Regardless of what people say. Sometimes it actually gets a little out of hand, as a matter of fact. And not a single Democrat turned around and said, what are you talking about? Everything you're saying is a lie.
The safety of us.
You know, so she says that when she's not on the streets there doing her job, she's got to go unidentified because of the potential risk to her or her family.
Yeah, video shows ICE
Exactly
with a
right,
5-year-old
John.
girl
And it all
while
ties
agents
back to
attempt to
what we
arrest
first
their
started speaking
father.
about.
Yeah.
You know, it's this rhetoric. It's when you know, elected officials are out there on national television saying that, you know, these ICE agents are modern day Gestapo. Well, what are you supposed to do? I mean, if somebody heard that, you know, during
What do you mean? It's true. And not only is it true, but it's also protected speech. What the are we talking about? What are we supposed to say? How you do not get to dictate the way that people criticize the administration. That is goddamn un-American. What the fuck are we doing? That's not even allowed in other countries where they already have hate speech enforcements either. Like there's no nation state on the planet that isn't like a straight up dictatorship where you can't say the government is behaving like a fascist administration and they just apprehend you. You know where they do that? In Turkey, they do that. Okay. That's ridiculous. Turkey does not have a First Amendment. They don't have free speech there. It's ridiculous that in a country like the United States of America, we can't even say the truth out loud anymore, where you're like, oh, sorry. It's just hurting people's feelings. It's like it's fomenting too much discontent, because at the heart of this matter is precisely that. You are making people too angry.
World War II, what are they inclined to do? They act out.
Turkey seems really based. Man, shut the go live there then, dumbass.
People in the fashion who are law enforcement officers of the country, sworn to uphold the current laws of our country, of not you know, being guided by politics here, but by the law. And they very much concerned about their safety, and it makes sense that they need to protect themselves. So, you know, I hope there's superseding federal statutes that will allow for all these federal officers and ICE agents to continue to cover themselves in states like California and other jurisdictions where they need to do it.
All right, Bill, we're going to leave it there. Thank you so much for taking time with us on this story. We